but you can see how they filled it out. So I know through the WhatsApp group, and just I know the fact that like many of you have started the application but haven't yet submitted the ISFA. So it might be useful for you just to see page by page how someone has filled it out. And this student is already in the second round of admission review. So you can tell that this is an example that showed us everything we need to see. So obviously, on this first page, I'm going to move through this relatively slowly in case, so hopefully that will help. The first page is relatively self-explanatory. We would need, your name. And yeah, this is, information. It's really important to look at the difference between when we're asking for student information versus parent information. Because for the US form as well, sometimes, a parent will be filling it out for the student. And then, for example, they like put their own information where the student is. So they'll say, yep, married and working full time. Oh, and someone's mic is on. So I'm hoping that, yeah, that person can perhaps mute their mic just so that there's no feedback. I think almost everyone. There we go. Okay, can everyone hear me again? Excellent. Yeah, so I think we still have at least one person whose mic is not muted. So I hope that all of our participants can mute their microphones just so that we don't have any. Yeah.
I'll just make sure I'll unmute that person.
मेरे पास भी है भाभी, वो पड़ा है टीवी पे.
Okay, thank you so much. Right, so on this first page, obviously it's just this general information about how to fill it out, what visa you are expected to be on. It's going to be the F1 for all of you. The other types relate to very specific other reasons for being in the US and other kind of dependent status. So make sure you're checking F1. And yeah, when you expect to begin your studies, we care mostly about the year. Yeah, and so you're attending a college or university for the first time. I think all of you are going to be in that boat. Marital status is very generally for undergrad students, you are not married. So again, this is about you, not your parents. And date of birth, we always need to see, and then place of birth. So if you have a passport from more than one country, all we're asking here is your place of birth. And yeah, generally, the students will list the other colleges that they're applying to. You might not be applying to any other schools, but if you are, then we like to see that as well. Okay, so page 2, this is parents' information. So here we do want to see all the information specific to the parents. So marital status, that tells us a lot about the level of support for the family. Just general information, age, relationship, your occupation, if there is one, there isn't always one. This person did not fill out the number of years with the employer. But again, the more detail that you can provide us about these, basically the sources of income that make up your contribution amount, this is really, really useful for us. So we need to see how many people are in your household. Because if one student can indicates that they can support $20,000 per year, but then they list that they have 13 siblings, we just need to make sure that we're seeing proof that that's accurate. Every once in a while too, even though we ask for these contribution amounts in US dollars, we'll still get the amount in whatever the currency is of the home country. So it might look like someone's a millionaire, but in reality, it actually relates to a very different calculation in US dollars. So we just ask students to really, really read this form carefully in terms of how we're asking for the information. So yeah, basic information we're asking for the members of your household, where they're attending, all of this. I think this is also pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so here's where we start getting into more of the nuts and bolts. Section 3, financial information. So what documentation will you be presenting to verify income and asset information? This relates to that support financial documentation I listed. So it's not enough just to submit the ISPA. We do need to see proof of whatever that support amount is. So the student indicated that they will be submitting asset documents. I'm guessing that relates to, maybe some proof of home ownership, or maybe like a title of a car, just, any proof of finance that the family is willing to, list as an asset that could be, used to offset the cost of education. This varies a lot by family. You don't have to have an asset document. Some students are supported by a sponsor, someone who's outside their immediate family who is willing to fund their education for a certain amount, maybe $5,000 a year. So in cases like that, you would write that in and you would then send us a letter of support from that sponsor. So exchange rate, you can find that out very easily online. And I think, your local Education USA office can also really help with filling out this form and calculating the exchange rate. Does your government currently impose any restrictions on exchange and release of funds? The answer is overwhelmingly no, unless you might be applying from like North Korea or, one of a country like that might have very, very, very restricted opportunities for students to study outside. This is going to be a no. I can tell you right now, at least there are no restrictions, I think, from government of India for releasing funds or for studying in the US. If you have any source of emergency funds once you arrive in the US, you would list that here in number 20. This student happens to have a US citizen in the US who is willing to underwrite some of those travel expenses and just to kind of be a resource. So that's really important for us to know as well. Many students don't have a source of emergency funds once they arrive. And in that case, you leave it blank. So then how are you going to pay for transportation to the US? Again, we're just really trying to break down where these sources of contribution are from. In many cases, it's primarily from the parent's income. That's what it was when I was applying to Beloit and I was filling out the US version of this form. We also had to break down exactly where our contributions were going to come from. And so parents' income was, that's what we had. So that's really what I listed here. And then we ask a little bit about the financial status of the household in the prior year. So we're asking about income from parents' work, income if you worked as a student and you got some kind of income, about how much is that. If you have a spouse as a student, what that would be. But again, this is you, so you probably don't have a spouse. That would be a 0, I'm guessing. Is there a family business? Do you have income that is kind of held in real estate? Like if you own your house, what kind of liquid assets would come from that? How much equity? So a lot of these questions, again, just about where this money is coming from. Is there a pension or a retirement fund? In the US, it's quite common for parents to have accrued assets through the form of like retirement insurance. And so we can kind of cash that out. And that's how many families will help offset the cost of attendance. They will have been paying, right, this sort of insurance toward retirement, and then they can cash out some of that amount and put it toward education. So we want to see any sources like that your family will be drawing on to make this an affordable option for you. So will there be significant increase or decrease in families' income? If there will be, like COVID related, or if a parent is perhaps undergoing surgery and they won't be working for 6 or 8 weeks, if your family is going to move, or if you anticipate that the parent is getting a different job or a better job, any changes that you anticipate in the upcoming year, you can write in right here on the form. This student here did not anticipate any changes, so they put a 0, or they put no. Asset information. Okay, assets are, again, anything outside of income that you get from a job. So what do you own? What are you willing to kind of put up as collateral for an education? This family owned a store. And so they list out the value of that asset there. They list their home, which they own, and they kind of list the amount that they're able to draw from that. So again, your situation might be incredibly different. or you might also have some of the similar ways of demonstrating the financial contribution on your page. So this is where you would lay out all of this. I very much encourage students to fill this out with their parents and to not try and remember all of this information themselves. I would not have been able to fill this out, documenting my family's financial situation. I wouldn't know half of these numbers. So please, students, don't feel like this is a form you need to do on your own. So this is the final page. No, is this the final page? This might be. No, this is the second to last page, I think. Again, continuing your discussion of any assets your family has, any money, property, or assets in another country. Some people do own property or have some kind of business, some kind of financial stability that is outside their home country. This family does not, so they said no. And then they also just list their car and what that's worth. Because if we see that your family has 6 Lamborghinis, that paints a specific financial picture that we'd kind of want to see represented elsewhere. It's all just to get that overall picture for us. We're not going to call your bank. We're not going to, ask you to take pictures of the inside of your house and ask, when you're going to post it for sale. Like, we're not going to do any of that. We just need to see what financial sources are available to your family. Expenses. So yeah, how much does your family have to pay to have that house, to buy groceries? How many, if there are other students who are already in college or who are paying to be in high school, what are those expenses like? Do you have any outstanding loans? In the US, many of us do. Many of us are still paying for our own college education through the loans. So yeah, this is where you'd kind of tell us what liability your family has and what kind of ongoing expenses you are calculating in to what you're doing. So yeah, let's see, what does the student have? Oh yeah, does your family employ other people? Do you have, are you actually paying an income to other people as well? So hopefully this kind of helps clarify this section where you're really laying out these individual sources for us. This is what we really, really, really look at Beloit. So we need to see what your family is able to contribute, again, from these different sources that you see laid out, what that amounts to an overall contribution toward the cost of attendance every single year. And as you see, it looks like, let's see here. Yeah, this student's numbers vary a little bit from year to year, what they're able to contribute. We often see the number going up a little bit over the years as the family kind of accrues more assets or pulls together more funding. So, we just look at that overall tally. This is what we enter, as we're kind of making admission decisions, as we're making financial aid decisions for students. And this is what we're going to have to put right on that I-20 for the US government. So yeah, again, I know that this was sort of a common question that came up in the WhatsApp group, that people wanted a little bit of guidance on how to fill the ISPA. So hopefully this kind of makes sense. I'm also more than happy to have a one-on-one with you and just go through it again and address any very specific questions for you. But again, I think it's important to remember that if you don't have information on some of these areas, leave them blank. It's okay to not have something that you can fill in there. We don't all have 7 different areas of funding that are immediately available to us. So we just need to see what is available for you and what is not. So this is, and please remember to sign on the bottom. We will come after you if we don't see a signature. It's really important to attest that the information above is correct. So please don't forget that last section on the bottom there. So with the ISPA, it's very, very, very important that you present an accurate picture of the maximum amount that your family is able to contribute toward the cost of education. Sometimes we get students who will either choose to write in a big amount because they think that they'll be more likely to receive an admission offer if we think that they can afford more. But then it turns out through the financial support documentation that that's just not an accurate picture. That's putting a lot of undue burden on you and your family. On the other end, sometimes it's understandable that, college is a major investment in the US. A lot of families just aren't used to or aren't prepared for the idea that they would have to contribute so much toward the cost of education. So students will often just write in a really low amount because that's, they're like, well, that's really all I want to put toward education. I'd like to receive the rest in aid. But it's important to know that our resources are quite finite at Beloit and at any other institution you're applying to. So we have to make a calculation for every student individually based on the number they're telling us. And if we know that the number that you're giving us on that ISFA is, so low that with the amount of merit scholarship you're eligible for, and with any additional need-based aid we might be able to supply, if we see that there's still too big a gap and that we're not able to meet enough need to make Beloit a reality, then we can't offer admission. Like, we can't ethically move forward with an admission decision if we know it's just not going to be in the cards. So that's why, sometimes students will put a really low amount in the hopes that, they'll just sort of get aid from us. And then they are, they're denied admission just because we know we can't get there. And then they'll come back and they'll say, oh, no, wait, I've actually got another $5,000 or $10,000 that I can put toward it. And it's like, well, you should have said that in the first place. We want to make sure that we're being transparent and clear, and we want to make sure that you're being transparent and clear about what your family is able to contribute toward the cost. And again, those I-20 implications, because we're attesting to the US government on that I-20 that you're eligible to be here, that you're able to be in the US for the purpose of full-time study, they need to see that there's a financial support happening. And they ask us very directly, how much scholarship are you offering? Why is the student eligible for that scholarship? Like, they can call anytime and say, all right, this student right here, we see some red flags. Tell us exactly about how you are helping support the student and what they're able to contribute. So we need a paper trail, and we need to know that what we're getting from you is honest, and that we are maintaining good records on our part too. So, and then just in terms of how to actually find the ISFA and submit it to us, we do not accept the CSS profile. So in order, if you're on CSS profile and you're looking for Beloit, you're not going to find us because we don't want you to incur any expenses just to apply to Beloit or just to submit the ISFA. So instead, you can download it directly from our website, and I can very happily put the link in the chat after this presentation, or you can just email me and say, where is that again? And you can download it for free. As you can see with the student, with the example I gave you, they obviously downloaded it, filled it out by hand, and then scanned it and sent it as a PDF. That's fine. If you're able to fill it out digitally through some kind of program you have on your computer, cool. We don't care. Just make sure that you're not paying to send us this information. Beloit does also not have an application fee of any kind. So we don't want you to pay just to have to apply to us. Right, so with strengthening that application and then strengthening that financial aid application, we just want to make sure that, again, you're taking your time. For the application itself, we want you just to make sure that you're telling us as much of your story as you can. Bouncing back to the actual admission application here, this is an opportunity for you to tell as much as you can about yourself. Obviously, through the Next Genius scholarship review process, we're going to be getting to know you, but often it's, we have more than one reader for every application. I'm going to get to know you really well, I can assure that. But the second reader might not be there for those Next Genius interviews and might not be there for my one-on-one chats with you. So it's important to that person that they get a full picture of who you are, what your goals are, what all you've done, and what qualities and what personality traits have come from those experiences. We're not just looking for academically prepared students to study at our school. Through the Next Genius selection process and through the way that we just look at applications, I want to admit someone who knows what's special about Beloit and who is ready to engage with all the opportunities that we have, and the way that we kind of model our education, the way that we have designed our curriculum. I want a student who's excited about that, who wants to engage outside of the classroom as well. So I need to be able to see that from your application. So we have to tell a lot of students, especially those for whom it's kind of new to have to brag about yourself or to talk about your accomplishments. In many systems that's sort of downplayed in the education in the classroom environment. But this is a chance for you to tell me who you are and why you deserve to be at Beloit and why you think you would be happy at Beloit. I'm not doing my job right if I'm not trying to assess that level of information. So yeah, give a good impression. When you're working with me, any other universities you're applying to, the Next Genius team, these are opportunities to show how mature and prepared you are for this level of study. Be really polite and deferential to your teachers. Understand that they're not going to be able to turn around in just a day and give you a really high recommendation. These are relationships that you have to build as well as you can over time, because that recommendation and the university's impression of you, just how you're handling the application process, that matters a lot. And so we want someone who's taking this seriously and who understands that this is an interview. This is a great preparation for when you're applying for jobs. And that interview process is absolutely critical. So the way that you handle this process, the way that you handle, your interactions with the Next Genius team and how you're working with your teachers, all of this matters a lot. So we really encourage students to remember that. Right, so then with merit scholarships, I'm going to keep an eye on the time here. So how we are evaluating you through the Next Genius program, and then also just for scholarship consideration outside of Next Genius, this is how we evaluate everyone. So for you, we are definitely obviously going to be looking at how you're demonstrating your merit through the application process. This is kind of a unique scholarship program that we offer, because generally to consider students for scholarships, we're not going to make them go through this interview process and these often it's like a small group challenge or some very specific project. We don't make all students go through that for merit scholarship consideration. But for Next Genius, you do. And as you know, we will be awarding one scholar the full tuition scholarship. And then the runners up, we usually have about 4 or 5 that we offer very prestigious kind of substantial scholarships to. So all of the Next Genius scholars and finalists who come to our campus are receiving substantial financial support. So for you, obviously, we're evaluating you through whatever those criteria are. And then for everyone, you and others, for scholarship consideration, you can tell we're looking a lot of the same things that we would for admission consideration. Whether you're admissible to the school and how much support we're able to give you through a merit scholarship depends on how good a student you are, how involved a student you are, how your teachers speak about you, how well you write. The quality of that essay matters a lot. Some schools will look at standardized test results. If you submit your SAT or ACT and you'd like us to weigh that in the decision, we certainly will. If you feel that your test really reflects what you're capable of as a student and you're proud of that score, send it. If you're not, if you're like me and standardized testing is just really not going to show what you're capable of as a student, then don't. We will review you for both admission and scholarship consideration based on what we get. So as long as you've checked off all those components I listed in the beginning, as long as we deem your application complete, we will review that for admission and scholarship. I'm not going to favor applications that did send me SAT. If you send me your application and you haven't sent me your test score, I'm not going to wonder why. I'm not going to just assume that you're a horrible tester. Again, we want to be very holistic in how we're evaluating a student's potential for success at Beloit. And grades tell us a lot, but they don't tell us everything. Perhaps you had a really bad year. Perhaps there's a substantial dip in your GPA in one particular class. So that mark on its own doesn't tell me who you are as a student. It tells me that life got in the way or that there was something that wasn't a good fit about that class. So we're looking very holistically about how you did in your other classes. Did you pick up your grade? Did it improve over time? If there is a really significant red flag on your transcript, are you addressing it in your essay or in your supplemental materials? Are you helping us contextualize whatever happened there? So again, the way that we see whether you're prepared for college is more than just those marks alone. And I don't want to just look at your marks alone to look for that information. So whether you're the type of student who has the privilege and the opportunity to participate in 5 events every year and Model UN and TEDx, and you're a state leader in cricket, and you have done a summer camp in robotics, not everyone's able to do that. And I'm not going to favor an applicant who happens to have the privilege to be able to mark out their portfolio in that way. If what you have time for after school is to work in your family's business or to take care of siblings, then I want you to tell me that too. And I want you to tell me what character traits, what qualities have come from that, and what you've learned from that experience. So we're not gonna favor someone who has more privilege and who has been given more opportunities through their situation. We want a student who is demonstrating interests, passion, initiative, resilience, and just engagement in the world around them. And we can look for that in different ways. And then of course, we're not going to consider you for scholarship if you're not eligible for admission in the first place. So yeah, we do need to see that you have indeed, that you're actually finishing high school and that you're eligible to be here in all of those other ways too. Yeah, so that kind of brings me to the end of this portion of the conversation. I know we've got about 10 minutes, so I'll just sort of leave this slide up so that everyone can find my information. But if we have questions, I wonder, Devika, if you could help locate some of those in the chat if I'm not seeing all of them, to see what I can address here.
Yes, so we recommend all the students to, one by one unmute themselves and ask questions, because that's the trend that we have been following in the past webinars, and that's really interactive. So, so you all please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask questions. Meanwhile, there is one question in the chat asked by Aditya, says where to send this application. I believe he's talking about ISFA. Where to send this application for aid?
Okay, that's a really good question. Let me see. Let me start. Let's see, in question and answers. I don't know if I'm able to add this information here. Oh, chat. Here we go. Okay, I'm in the chat. I'm writing it to everyone. The address that we prefer you use is schoolforms@beloit.edu. That's one word, schoolforms. This is the inbox that's managed by our application processing team. So the fastest way to get your documents linked to your transcript, to your file, and to have that checkbox marked off in your application requirements is to send it to School Forms. If you don't remember that and you find my email address, that's fine. You can send it to me too. It'll all end up in the right place. But yeah, our institution prefers that you use schoolforms@beloit.edu, that you share that email address with your teachers and counselors so that they can send the transcript and English documents and everything else directly there as well. English proficiency is indeed necessary. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this is something that we need to see proof of before we can make an admission decision. And therefore, before we can make a scholarship decision for Next Genius, we need to see that English proficiency has been demonstrated. And like I said in the beginning of the presentation, it's not just so that we know that you'll be able to be successful in our English curriculum. We're a selective school. It's a pretty rigorous curriculum, but if you're prepared, if we see that level of proficiency demonstrated, then we know you'll be just fine. We have a lot of support on campus as well. But we cannot issue you an I-20 and tell the US government that you're ready to be a student here if you haven't demonstrated English proficiency. And besides finances, they look specifically at English. So, if we have an I-20 for a student and you're going in and you've got your visa interview and they're starting to ask questions and they have concerns about your level of proficiency, you're not likely to be granted a visa. So this English proficiency requirement is on behalf of us and the US government, who would be necessary in you coming here. So again, we try to be flexible with how you can show it. Some schools are very rigid and require TOEFL or IELTS, and that's it. And you have to take that test and you have to pay to take that test in order to show us that you're eligible. But Beloit, we offer Duolingo, which is a lot cheaper. If you're in an A-level curriculum, if you're in any curriculum that's taught in English, that demonstrates it. If you'd like to just do the waiver request and tell me how you have been speaking English and why you think you are able to demonstrate it that way, it's a free form. I can also tell you guys where to find that. But we're not just going to accept that form as proof, and we're just not going to just check it off. We're going to look at your application and make sure we're seeing evidence of that English. Because if you're
Hello.
submitting that waiver and then you're writing me an essay, or the English I see throughout your application is just not there, then I'm not going to approve the waiver.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Anita.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. How are you?
Yeah. Hi, ma'am. Good morning. How are you?
Good, good.
Yeah. So basically, I had a question that you were explaining about ISPA. So there was in section F in which about expenses, right? Expected expenses. So in that, what do you expect from a student to fill over there? Like the total attendance cost, what we can we can give, or the partial one we can give?
Yes, very good question. And I'm going back here, section F. I'm just looking for my own reference here. So you said it's section F, right?
Yeah, it's section F, expected expenses.
Expected expenses. Okay. Oh yeah. Expected support.
Support,
Right.
yeah.
So section F, yeah, is support. So what you, right. So, in those other figures that we've put down, where this is what you expect to be able to contribute. So it says enter the expected amount of annual support toward your education costs. So, I mean, this might not be the overall picture, because obviously you're not going to cash out your parents' full paycheck and send it over to us, and then not be able to eat that evening.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is what you're able to contribute. And yeah, we understand it's not going to be the full picture, but it's really important for us that it is the maximum amount you're able to put toward this particular cost.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. Hope you have a
Thank
great day.
you. Yeah, you too. Excellent. I see someone submitted their Common App. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I've been following the list that the team sent me, and just sort of tracked before this chat today how many have their application underway, who's missing what. We had like a third of you who hadn't submitted anything, who weren't at all in our system yet, even as an inquiry. So I really encourage you now to get that process going, because as those who have submitted it know, this can take a little longer than we thought. It can take longer to get that letter of recommendation, or to maybe get those bank statements from your bank. Maybe you've fallen over a holiday and you have to wait a full week to get it. I just encourage you to get the ball rolling now with whatever sections you are able to submit to us. We have a question here about how we evaluate gap year students. Excellent question. And I know this year there have been a lot more gap year students for so many reasons. We love to see gap years because it shows us, like, the student is often, first of all, they're able to give us those final high school transcripts, which is great. And so we can actually see proof that they've completed their schooling. And I'm really eager to see how you've used your time. So whether you have worked for your family, again, whether you've had significant family requirements, that's fine. But I want to see what you've been thinking about, what you've been writing, what activities you're trying to explore. Tell me about how this gap year in COVID times has been for you. I look a lot for how you talk about your gap year to us, and your reasons for taking it, and what you've been able to accomplish, what you were planning that didn't happen. I just want to see what you've been up to for this year, because as you know, like, a year is a lot of time. So you can gain a lot of perspective, you can gain a lot of readiness, and kind of you can sometimes evolve your academic goals a little bit through that gap year. So I want to see how you've spent it. It's not going to change anything about your admission or your scholarship availability. You're still applying as a first year, whether you're applying right out of high school or not. So it's not going to be unfavorable. There we go. It's not going to be unfavorable for any reason. It's just, yeah, it's an opportunity to tell a little more about yourself and how you spent this time. So we're seeing a question here. Let's see. Okay, as we apply in regular decision, where does this Next Genius tag come in? I'm not sure what you mean by tag necessarily, but so basically, as we said in the beginning, you have to apply for admission alongside this Next Genius program. So these are kind of parallel application processes and evaluation processes. So whether you were a Next Genius candidate or not, I need to see all these application materials. I need to see your ISFA. So that I can review you for merit and need-based aid. So what we do in terms of connecting you as an applicant to Next Genius is we get that wonderful spreadsheet that we got last week. And so I've been going through, like I said, I've been marking off who's done what, and I look for your name in our system and I tag you as a Next Genius scholar or a Next Genius candidate. So I know when I'm going through all my lists of all the students from India who are applying to Beloit, I can see right away who's on our Next Genius list. So you don't really have to indicate anywhere in the application that you're a Next Genius candidate. I don't think Common App has a line for that. There might be something about, am I applying for an external scholarship, yes or no? But don't worry, we'll be able to connect your name with the Next Genius program. So even if you haven't found somewhere in the application to make that clear, it's clear. We know. If we have any questions, we can always ask the Next Genius team and they can confirm who's there. So, okay, another excellent question. Oh, someone says, in which decision should we apply? Like I mentioned before, we don't have a preference. If you're ready right now, you can submit your application tomorrow. It's not going to preclude you from consideration for Next Genius funding. I think the program suggests that you apply a regular decision, again, because it'll leave you more time. It just kind of, yeah, it sort of goes along with the timeline for this process more. But we do have some Next Genius scholars who have applied early and who are already all done. And so either way, I don't have a preference. Depends on when you're ready to, but don't feel rushed. If you're not ready yet, don't feel like I'm going to be so much happier for the ones who are done already. Yeah, so let's see here. Oh yes, hello Shakura. I'm glad you could join us. We're happy to see everyone whenever they're able to join. And then so Balraj says, will you take interview for scholarship? For Next Genius we do. So for you guys, there's most certainly will be a separate interview process because you're being considered for a full tuition scholarship. So we have a lot more questions and information that we want to get from you. And so for all Next Genius, you're obviously going for this one full scholarship, but you're also being considered for significant merit scholarships outside of that. So yeah, you all will go through an interview process. I think some of the details are to be determined, but you'll be hearing from us in the upcoming weeks. Students who are applying outside of the Next Genius program are not required to do a scholarship interview. I did when I was at Beloit, 20 years ago when I was applying to be a presidential scholar. I had to go to campus for a weekend and do like all these interviews. We don't do that anymore. We're looking very, very, very carefully at your application, at how we are translating and evaluating your accomplishments as what we consider merit. That's what defines the scholarship amount. If
Hello.
Oh, hello. Aditya, is that you again?
Yeah, am I interrupting you? I'm sorry.
Not at all. No, we're good.
Yeah, so as you were telling me that ISFA expects expect bank statement from students. Do they expect a full year bank statement or a quarter year bank statement or a monthly bank statement?
We want to see like a full, I'd love to see as full a picture as I can about that last year's expenses. But if it's a monthly statement or, some people get paid every 2 weeks, just make sure that we know how regular that income source is.
Yeah. I got
it's
it.
good to know whether that's the amount someone gets in a year or a month. That might be cause for like a mini heart attack. One way or the other. But yeah, so just make sure we know. It depends on what the employer is able to do and what the bank is able to do. So just make sure we know how regular that income source, like what kind of percentage that is.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
And again, like for all these forms, if you feel like what you're putting on the ISFA, if you're like, oh, this isn't the full picture, I feel like I need to explain this number, email me. Just say, okay, check out my ISFA, section F. I want to explain this number a little bit more. That's a perfectly okay way to add a little more context to that financial picture. And we can attach that email right to your file so that everyone who's looking at it will understand. So some of these pieces have to be very formal and have to be very official, but you explaining who you are and what you're able to do, what you're able to support financially. I don't want you to be limited by a number of little boxes on the ISFA, to explain that. So yeah, if you have a concern, a question, just reach out to me. Someone says how many full and partial scholarships are available. For the Next Genius pool, we will, like all of the Next Genius partner universities, we offer one full tuition scholarship to the winner. That's the whole point of this, of this scholarship program. And then partial scholarships, we review every single applicant for merit scholarship consideration based on your GPA, based on your extracurriculars, all of this. You are awarded a scholarship amount. So we generally will award between, I think, $15,000 and $36,000 per year, depending on your merit. And so I think our Next Genius scholars, like the runners up, will generally get quite close to 36,000 just for being finalists in this and for being star students. You're obviously all really qualified if you've made it this far in the process. And I congratulate you all for that, because you're precisely the type of students we're looking for. And yeah, so there will be merit scholarships for those who aren't the finalists, and for all students who are applying from India and everywhere else. They're also reviewed for as much merit scholarship as we're able to give you, based on your potential for being successful here at Beloit. So I know we're a few minutes over. I want to respect your time because I know it's quite late in the evening there. Also, I don't know how you've set up the day. So if there are any last questions that I can answer, anything that I completely did not talk about, once again, I'll put, I think chat's disabled, but yeah, once again, let me just share that final screen so you have my, my contact information handy in case you didn't get it last time. Just for the last minute here, share screen. Here I am. Okay. So yeah, you can email me at any time. I'm at trumbleam@beloit.edu. You can also check out our website at beloit.edu. It's a pretty fun website. I'm actually quite impressed with it compared to a lot of other universities I've worked at. So it might be fun if you have the time and the energy to just kind of navigate around and feel out what it's like to actually be a student at Beloit. Because again, this presentation was a lot about logistics and brass tacks. If you'd like to schedule a conversation with me to feel out what it's like to be at Beloit, to answer more questions about academics and extracurriculars, I love having those conversations. Some of you have already chatted to for like over an hour. So please don't hesitate to reach out. That's why I'm here. Certainly hoping to hear from some of you I haven't heard from at all yet. Even before we start that official interview process for Next Genius. So yeah, anything else I can do?
All right, I think that was an incredible session. You've answered so many questions with so much ease, and I think I myself got clear about ISFA so well that even, if students ask me questions from other college batches about ISFA, I would be able to answer it because it's so nicely pictured in my mind. So thank you personally for that, Alex. And thank you for doing this wonderful presentation with our Beloit applicants. And yes, even Next Genius encourages you to interact with both of our partners, both Team Next Genius and Team Beloit, as much as you can, so that we get to know you as much as we can. So, all right, thank you so much, Alex, and thank you to all our applicants who have joined us. And we will definitely share the session recording with everyone by tomorrow.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening. I wish you all good health too as we navigate this craziness together. I'm hoping that we can see many of you in person, in the upcoming, once you come to Beloit. Wish I could see you in person in January, but we're happy to be a part of this however we can be. So good health to everyone, and I hope to be in touch soon.
Good health to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.